So last night there was a Piers Morgan panel with Dave Rubin, Cenk Uygur, Konstantin Kisin, and they were really leaning into the idea that somehow the left have a monopoly on violence, which simply isn't true, factually not true. And it was up to Lewis Goodall to debunk this, and it was kind of almost a pile-on of one person. Cenk kind of wasn't great, but let's get straight into the video because they're weaponizing this. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about violence. Like Charlie Kirk saw his death as an unfortunate result of the freedom of the Second Amendment. So we need to get this clear and really fight back on this disgusting weaponization.
We've seen people who want to run places like, the Oxford University Union, for example, and so on, all coming out with similar gleeful celebration at the murder of a 31-year-old father of two young children. I find it utterly despicable, but also quite terrifying, actually, that they're so brazenly doing this. What is your reaction to that?
Well, Piers, my reaction is that I think it's reprehensible. And I think it is part of a much wider pattern of behaviour, driven by partly social media, but in particular the hyperpolarisation of American politics, which is part of a big trend of legitimising violence, of making violence an acceptable means of prosecuting your politics. Where I would disagree, possibly with you, possibly with other members of the panel, is that this is somehow just confined to the left, or the idea that this is just happening on the left. Yes, there have been examples of that. We've just seen it just now. I was disgusted at the reaction to what happened with Luigi Manzioni earlier in the year. Very similar sort of phenomenon.
Yeah.
But let's see where it's happened in other parts of the right. Do you remember what happened with Paul Pelosi, for example? Nancy Pelosi's husband almost killed to death. What was the reaction of not just some random left-wing accounts, not some teacher, not whatever, but Don Jr., Donald Trump Jr. He decided to put out a picture of a hammer and some underpants and say, I've got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume tonight. This is the...
Yeah, the fact that they're acting like the pearl clutching, this kind of cry bully, like, oh, we're the victim now, when Palestinian kids dying every day, they don't give a fucking shit. They don't care about life. And this is what's genuinely frustrating coming from the right now, is that, oh, all of a sudden the sanctity of life, the idea that they care about free speech and good faith debate. Charlie Kirk was not a good faith debater. He was literally in his last moments doing whataboutism and fallacies about trans people somehow killing more than anybody in mass shootings. Simply not true. It was 5 compared to thousands of right-wingers, often white nationalist Christians, who make up the dominant group of violent people in America. And we need to make sure that's clear. Who is causing violence and chaos? Because it's not leftists in America.
Wider legitimisation of violence that we're seeing. And let's just have a look. I mean, let's talk about some accounts that I've been looking at. You've been horrified what you've seen on Twitter, some stuff I've seen on Blue Sky, some stuff I've seen on X over the course of the last 24 hours. Liberals can never be allowed to run this country again. How can you coexist with people that want to murder you? If you vote Democrat at this point, you're a demonic, evil person. I will support whatever...
See, her reaction, to her, that's justified. She's laughing, she's smiling. Oh, great, what to expect? No. There's no legitimate reaction to saying, oh, now we just get rid of the Democrats. Civil war. Because that's what they're calling for. How many times can you call for a civil war? After Cracker Barrel changed its logo, civil war. How many times can you, cry wolf and say, civil war's coming, invasion? They can't escalate any further.
Saves our country, Trump has a blank check as far as I'm concerned. I could go on, I could go on, and I could go on. And I could give a list of all of the many occasions we've seen in recent years of right-wing, hard-right, far-right terrorism that we saw against what happened in Minnesota. I mentioned Paul Pelosi, Josh Shapiro. In fact, I disagree with just as a matter of fact. Investigators found in the Shapiro case online activity and writings that included extreme right-wing, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and rhetoric against Shapiro, who is, of course, Jewish and a Democrat, and in Michigan. And even in the last 24 hours or so, what do we see from Laura Loomer on Ilhan Omar, the Democratic Congresswoman, Laura Loomer being a very senior MAGA person. At the end of the day, everyone needs to realise that Ilhan Omar is a bloodthirsty Muslim terrorist sympathiser who has no place in our country. Her presence in Congress is a national security threat, and she's an enemy from within. So please, the idea that there is some sort of asymmetry on this. The fact of the matter is, America and indeed the UK as well, we've got into a really negative cycle here where basically the temperature goes up and it goes up and it goes up. And then sometimes some of the people who are responsible for that turn around and go, God, I can't believe it's so hot in here. Everyone needs to pull back from the brink. Social media needs to actually be reformed and needs to be changed. Elon Musk has been pretty responsible for some of this stuff that we've seen as well. So let's not pretend.
Yeah, like Elon Musk alone has been responsible since 2022, the last 3 years, of enabling neo-Nazis, Andrew Anglin, Nick Fuentes, the far right to just proliferate. That's just one social media alone, Twitter, pretty influential in terms of the discourse. We need to talk about this. It's a wider discussion, and I feel we won't have it. We'll just go back. No, we need to have a discussion about what are the limits of freedom of speech. Can you just spout great replacement theories? Can you just spout disinformation about trans people, Muslims, and immigrants? No, I don't think you should. I think there should be standards of truth and integrity in journalism. And if you've got a voice on YouTube, you should be held accountable if you lie and spread disinformation. Because at the moment, it's carte blanche. Like Konstantin Kisin comes in later, just lying. Like no accountability for his lies, constantly lies. This is the problem we face, is grifters like Charlie Kirk just lie about trans people and just spread disinformation. And when he was debunked by literal students in Oxford and Cambridge, like people just say, they just don't care about the truth. The death of truth is what is happening here.
If we pretend that this is just a problem of the left or of liberalism or of wokeism or whatever you want to say, this problem is not going to be any better or get any better. Let's use this as a moment for all of us to look within ourselves and decide to be better.
Okay, well, we've been joined on the panel by PBD Podcast's Angry Patriot, Vincent O'Shannor. Vinny, great to have you back on our sense. I'm sorry it's in such awful...
Let's see his reaction now. Pretty fact-driven, moderate, just sensible reaction to this. We need to cool down, bring back, step back. What hatred is being caused by who, what are they saying, and it is the right. It is being driven, like division against trans people, immigrants, woke, civil war, this claim of invasions, this very violent rhetoric is coming from the right.
Circumstances that we're talking on this Friday. But your response to what Lewis Goodall's just said, that this is a problem on all sides, that political violence has been ratcheting up and that there's a collective issue that needs to be dealt with.
Well, Piers, thank you for having me, and hello to everybody on the panel. Piers, I'm sorry, but trying to compare...
There you go. Can't even admit that even though statistically 76% of right-wing extremist domestic terrorism, no, just can't just deny reality. Just say, oh, we're not violent. We're good boys, we are. What the fuck?
A photo of a Pelosi hammer for a Halloween thing to somebody getting shot in the neck.
Yes, you can. They are. They are essentially an indication to violence. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, actually. They can be compared. They both signal, look, violence towards Paul Pelosi, a hammer, attack that was meant for Nancy Pelosi. Like, what do you think the hammer was just tickle her? No, murder. Yes, there's different, you could argue, I would argue in a way, a hammer murder is probably more violent than a shot in the neck. Potentially more painful, more violent. So, yes, they can be compared. And he can't recognize that because it's like, oh, just the left are violent. When factually, this is not true.
In front of his family at a campus is unbelievable. The fact that you're trying to make the two comparison is absurd, okay? And if we wanted, since you're on the left and you have those beliefs, give me something that the left is positive about. Because from what we're seeing...
What? See, no arguments. Like, no argument.
They're pro-abortion. They're pro...
What? See, this is the problem. They can't address the violence on the right. They just can't. They just completely ignore it. When you call out the fact that they are the ones who have a monopoly on violence. The majority, it's like, well, you're pro-abortion. You're. It's like not an argument.
Celebrating assassination. They're pro-open border. Give me some.
What? What?
Something positive that the left is running on, because at the end of the day, they're
Taxing wealth, redistribution away, unions, housing, healthcare, Medicare for all, solving climate change, green jobs, saving the planet. I mean, the list could go on. Like, we actually want people to have good lives, good wages, be able to afford healthcare. What do you want? They don't want. They're the ones. See it. This is pure projection. He just wants to take. All they have is negativity. They want to get rid of wokeness. They want to get rid of trans rights. They want to get rid of due process for immigrants. They want to. It's all negative. It's never a positive vision of what America could be. It's always like, oh, the wokes are like, no. What do you want for America? And they want to destroy America because they hate liberalism. They hate freedom of speech, democracy, freedom of movement. They hate these values. They hate America, essentially.
the Democrats' 35-year low approval rating. And Piers,
Yeah, true. Well, at least he said something factually correct. What's your argument, though? That's just a data point. What is your argument there? Like, and also, Donald Trump isn't doing too well in the polls either.
I have to go a little bit deeper. I have to go. This isn't about left. This isn't about right. Charlie was a proponent. He was a Christian praising Jesus Christ everywhere that he went. And I think that's where we are, Piers. Ephesians chapter 6.
No, he was spreading hate towards trans people, minorities, black people, people who didn't agree with him. He actually wanted to censor people and cancel people who didn't want to agree with him. He wasn't a freedom of speech warrior. He wasn't. He didn't care about freedom of speech, only for him. And he wasn't a very good debater either. He would just debate college students like Ben Shapiro. He couldn't debate real people, so he had to just kind of do these like gotcha moments on students who are 18 and don't necessarily have the, skills to negotiate gotcha moments. Like, there's no serious debate here. He didn't care about freedom of speech. Just moments of like, oh, what's a woman? Like, that's not a debate. Like, that's not a debate. It's not a serious debate. And we need to rejuvenate the debate and go, actually, let's have a serious debate about the validity of trans people, the pros of immigration, like the, pros of democracy and due process for, illegal deportations, human rights for everyone. Like, these should be popular again. Let's make human rights popular again. So hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.